Hi there, and welcome back to our daily reading from Glinda of Oz by L. Frank Baum. We're going to read another 3 chapters today. If you remember yesterday's reading, Ozma and Dorothy made it to the Skeezers Island and met Queen Coo ee oh. But Queen Coo ee oh did not acknowledge Ozma as ruler and had Lady Oryx keep them prisoner in her house, where they learned that Queen Coo ee oh was not a good queen, and everyone was afraid of her, that she had taken magic from the 3 adepts and changed them into fish who lived in the lake that surrounded the island. So that's where we're picking up our reading today. So let's see what happens as the Skeezers and the Flatheads are about to go to war and Ozma and Dorothy are imprisoned by Lady Oryx's house. So this is Chapter 10, Underwater. When night fell, all the interior of the great dome, streets and houses, became lighted with brilliant incandescent lamps, which rendered it bright as day. Dorothy thought the island must look beautiful by night from the outer shore of the lake. There was revelry and feasting in the Queen's palace, and the music of the royal band could be plainly heard in Lady Oryx's house, where Ozma and Dorothy remained with their hostess and keeper. They were prisoners, but treated with much consideration. Lady Oryx gave them a nice supper, and when they wished to retire, showed them to a pretty room with comfortable beds, and wished them a good night and pleasant dreams. "What do you think of all this, Ozma?" Dorothy anxiously inquired when they were alone. "I am glad we came," was the reply, "for although there may be mischief done tomorrow, it was necessary I should know about these people, whose leaders are wild and lawless, and oppress their subjects with injustice and cruelties. My task, therefore, is to liberate the Skeezers and the Flatheads, and secure for them freedom and happiness. I have no doubt I can accomplish this in time." "Just now, though, we're in a bad fix," asserted Dorothy. "If Queen Coo ee oh conquers tomorrow, she won't be nice to us, and if the Sudic conquers, he'll be worse." "Do not worry, dear," said Ozma. "I do not think we are in danger, whatever happens, and the result of our adventure is sure to be good." Dorothy was not worrying, especially. She had confidence in her friend, the Fairy Princess of Oz, and she enjoyed the excitement of the events in which she was taking part. So she crept into bed and fell asleep as easily as if she had been in her own cozy room in Ozma's palace. A sort of grating, grinding sound awakened her. The whole island seemed to tremble and sway, as it might do in an earthquake. Dorothy sat up in bed, rubbing her eyes to get the sleep out of them, and found it was daybreak. Ozma was hurriedly dressing herself. "What is it?" asked Dorothy, jumping out of bed. "I'm not sure," answered Ozma, "but it feels as if the island is sinking." As soon as possible, they finished dressing, while the creaking and swaying continued. Then they rushed into the living room of the house and found Lady Oryx, fully dressed, and awaiting them. "Do not be alarmed," said their hostess. "Coo ee oh has decided to submerge the island, that is all. But it proves the Flatheads are coming to attack us." "What do you mean by submerging the island?" asked Dorothy. "Come here and see," was the reply. Lady Oryx led them to a window which faced the side of the great dome which covered all the village, and they could see that the island was indeed sinking, for the water of the lake was already halfway up the side of the dome. Through the glass could be seen swimming fishes and tall stalks of swaying seaweeds, for the water was clear as crystal, and though they could distinguish it even farther, the shore of the lake. "The Flatheads are not here yet," said Lady Oryx. "They will come soon, but not until all of this dome is under the surface of the water." "Won't the dome leak?" inquired Dorothy anxiously. "No, indeed." "Was the island ever subsunk before?" "Oh, yes, on several occasions. But Coo ee oh doesn't care to do it that often. for it requires a lot of hard work to operate the machinery. The dome was built so that the island could disappear. I think," she continued, "that our queen fears the Flatheads will attack the island and try to break the glass of the dome. If we're under the water, they can't fight us, and we can't fight them," asserted Dorothy. "They could kill the fishes, however," said Ozma gravely. "We have ways to fight, also, even though our island is underwater," claimed Lady Oryx. "I cannot tell you all our secrets, but this island is full of surprises. Also, our queen's magic is astonishing." "Did she steal all from the 3 adepts in sorcery that are now fishes?" "She stole the knowledge and the magic tools, but she has used them as the 3 adepts never would have done." By this time, the top of the dome was quite underwater, and suddenly the island stopped sinking and became stationary. "See," cried Lady Oryx, pointing to the shore, "the Flatheads have come." On the bank, which was now far above their heads, a crowd of dark figures could be seen. "Now let us see what Coo ee oh will do to oppose them," continued Lady Oryx, in a voice that betrayed her excitement. The Flatheads, pushing their way through the line of palm trees, had reached the shore of the lake just as the top of the island's dome disappeared beneath the surface. The water now flowed from shore to shore, but through the clear water the dome was still visible, and the houses of the Skeezers could be dimly seen through the panes of glass. "Good!" exclaimed the Sudic, who had armed all his followers, and had brought with him 2 copper vessels, which he carefully set down upon the ground beside him. "If Coo ee oh wants to hide instead of fighting, our job will be easy, for in one of these copper vessels I have enough poison to kill every fish in the lake." "Kill them, then, while we have time, and then we can go home again," advised one of the chief officers. "Not yet," said the Sudic. "The Queen of the Skeezers has defied me, and I want to get her into my power, as well as to destroy her magic. She transformed my poor wife into a golden pig, and I must have revenge for that, whatever else we do." "Look out!" suddenly exclaimed the officers, pointing into the lake. "Something's going to happen." From the submerged dome, a door opened, and something black shot swiftly out into the water. The door instantly closed behind it, and the dark object cleaved its way through the water, without rising to the surface, directly toward the place where the Flatheads were standing. "What is that?" asked Dorothy to Lady Oryx. "That is one of the Queen's submarines," was the reply. "It is all enclosed and can move underwater. Coo ee oh has several of these boats, which are kept in little rooms in the basement under our village. When the island is submerged, the Queen uses these boats to reach the shore, and I believe now she intends to fight the Flatheads with them." The Sudic and his people knew nothing of Coo ee oh's submarines, so they watched with surprise as the underwater boat approached them. When it was quite near to the shore, it rose to the surface, and the top parted and fell back, disclosing a boat full of armed Skeezers. At the head was the Queen, standing up in the bow and holding in one hand a coil of magic rope that gleamed like silver. The boat halted, and Coo ee oh drew back her arm to throw the silver rope toward the Sudic, who was but now a few feet from her. But the wily Flathead quickly realized his danger before the Queen could throw the rope, and he caught up one of the copper vessels and dashed its contents full into her face. The Conquest of the Skeezers, Chapter 11. Queen Coo ee oh dropped the rope, tottering, and fell headlong into the water, sinking beneath the surface, while the Skeezers in the submarine were too bewildered to assist her, and only stared at the ripples in the water, where she had disappeared. A moment later, there arose to the surface a beautiful white swan. This swan was of a very large size, gracefully formed, and scattered all over its white feathers were tiny diamonds, so thickly placed that as the rays of the morning sun fell upon them, the entire body of the swan glistened like one brilliant diamond. The head of the diamond swan had a bill of polished gold, and its eyes were two sparkling amethysts. "Hooray!" cried the Sudic, dancing up and down with wicked glee. "My poor wife Rora is avenged at last. You made her a golden pig, Coo ee oh, and now I have made you a diamond swan. Float on your lake forever, if you like, for your web feet can do no more magic, and you are as powerless as the pig you made of my wife." "Villain! Scoundrel!" croaked the diamond swan. "You will be punished for this. Oh, what a fool I was to let you enchant me." "A fool you were, and a fool you are," laughed the Sudic, dancing madly in his delight. And then he carelessly tipped over the other copper vessel with his heel, and its contents spilled on the sands and were lost to the last drop. The Sudic stopped short and looked at the overturned vessel with a rueful countenance. "That's too bad," he exclaimed sorrowfully. "I've lost all the poison I had to kill the fishes with, and I can't make any more because only my wife knew the secret of it, and she is now a foolish pig and has forgotten all her magic." "Very well," said the diamond swan scornfully, as she floated upon the water and swam gracefully here and there. "I am glad to see you are foiled. Your punishment is just beginning, for although you have enchanted me and taken away my powers of sorcery, you still have the 3 magic fishes to deal with, and they'll destroy you in time. Mark my words." The Sudic stared at the swan for a moment. Then he yelled to the men, "Shoot her! Shoot that saucy bird!" They let fly some arrows at the diamond swan, but she dove under the water, and the missiles fell harmlessly. When Coo ee oh rose to the surface, she was far from the shore, and she swiftly swam across the lake to where no arrows or spears could reach her. The Sudic rubbed his chin and thought what to do next. Nearby floated the submarine in which the Queen had come, but the Skeezers who were in it were puzzled what to do with themselves. Perhaps they were not sorry their cruel mistress had been transformed into a diamond swan. The transformation left them quite helpless. The underwater boat was not operated by machinery, but by certain mystic words uttered by Coo ee oh. They didn't know how to submerge it, or how to make the watertight shield cover them again, or how to make the boat go back to the castle, or make it enter the little basement room where it was usually kept. As a matter of fact, they were now shut out of the village, under the great dome, and could not go back again. So one of the men called to the supreme dictator of the Flatheads, saying, "Please, make us prisoners and take us to your mountain, and feed us and keep us, for we have nowhere to go." Then the Sudic laughed and answered, "Not so. I can't be bothered by caring for a lot of stupid Skeezers. Stay where you are, or go wherever you please, so long as you keep away from our mountain." He turned to his men and added, "We have conquered Queen Coo ee oh and made her a helpless swan. The Skeezers are underwater and may stay there. So, having won the war, let us go home again and make merry and feast, having after many years proved the Flatheads are to be greater and more powerful than the Skeezers." So the Flatheads marched away and passed through the rows of palms and went back to their mountain, where the Sudic and a few of his officers feasted, and all the others were forced to wait on them. "I'm sorry we couldn't have roast pig," said the Sudic, "but as the only pig we have is made of gold, we can't eat her. Also, the golden pig happens to be my wife, and even were she not gold, I am sure she would be too tough to eat." Chapter 12. The Diamond Swan. When the Flatheads had gone away, the diamond swan came back to the boat, and one of the young Skeezers named Ervik said to her eagerly, How can we get back to the island, Your Majesty? Am I not beautiful? Asked Coo ee oh, arching her neck gracefully, spreading her diamond-sprinkled wings. I can see my reflection in the water, and I'm sure there's no bird or beast, nor human, as magnificent as I am. How shall we get back to the island, Your Majesty? Pleaded Ervic. When my fame spreads throughout the land, people will travel from all parts of this lake to look upon my loveliness, said Coo ee oh, shaking her feathers to make the diamonds glitter more brilliantly. But, Your Majesty, we must go home, and we do not know how to get there, Ervic persisted. My eyes, remarked the diamond swan, are wonderfully blue and bright, and will charm all beholders. Tell us how to make the boat go, how to get back to the island, begged Everick, and the others cried just as earnestly. Tell us, Coo ee oh, tell us. I don't know, replied the queen in a careless tone. You are a magic worker, a sorceress, a witch. I was, of course, when I was a girl, she said, bending her head over the clear water to catch her reflection in it. But now I've forgotten all such foolish things as magic. Swans are lovelier than girls, especially when they're sprinkled with diamonds. Don't you think so? And she gracefully swam away, without seeming to care whether they answered or not. Ervic and his companions were in despair. They saw plainly that Coo ee oh could not or would not help them. The former queen had no further thought for her island, her people, or her wonderful magic. She was only intent on admiring her own beauty. Truly, said Ervic in a gloomy voice, the Flatheads have conquered us. Some of these events had been witnessed by Ozma and Dorothy and Lady Oryx, who had left the house and gone close to the glass of the dome in order to see what was going on. Many of the Skeezers had also crowded against the dome, wondering what would happen next. Although their vision was to an extent blurred by the water and the necessity of looking upward at an angle, they had observed the main points of the drama enacted above. They saw Queen Coo ee oh's submarine come to the surface and open. They saw the queen standing erect to throw her magic rope. They saw her sudden transformation into a diamond swan, and a cry of amazement went up from the Skeezers inside the dome. Good! Exclaimed Dorothy. I hate that old Sudic, but I'm glad Coo ee oh is punished. This is a dreadful misfortune, cried Lady Oryx, pressing her hands upon her heart. Yes, agreed Ozma, nodding her head thoughtfully. Coo ee oh's misfortune will prove a terrible blow to her people. What do you mean by that? Asked Dorothy in surprise. It seems to me the Skeezers are in luck to lose their cruel queen. If that were all, you would be right, responded Lady Oryx. And if the island were above water, it would not be so serious. But here we all are, at the bottom of the lake, and fast prisoners in the dome. Can't you raise the island? Inquired Dorothy. No, only Coo ee oh knew how to do that, was the answer. We can try, insisted Dorothy. If it can be made to go down, it can be made to come up. The machinery is still here, I suppose. Yes, but the machinery works by magic, and Coo ee oh would never share her secret power with any one of us. Dorothy's face grew grave, but she was thinking. Ozma knows a lot of magic, she said. But not that kind of magic, Ozma replied. Can't you learn how by looking at the machinery? I'm afraid not, my dear. It isn't fairy magic at all. It is witchcraft. Well, said Dorothy, turning to Lady Oryx, you say there are other sub-sinking boats? We can get in one of those and shoot out to the top of the water, like Coo ee oh did, and so escape. And then we can help to rescue all the Skeezers down here. No one knows how to work the water boats but the Queen, declared the Lady Oryx. Isn't there any door or window in this dome that we could open? No. If there were, the water would rush in to flood the dome, and we could not get out." "The Skeezers," said Ozma, "could not drown. They only get wet and soggy, and in that condition they would be very uncomfortable and unhappy. But you are a mortal girl, Dorothy, and if your magic belt protected you from death, you would have to lie forever at the bottom of the lake." "No, I'd rather die quickly," asserted the little girl. "But there are doors in the basement that open, to let out the bridges and the boats, and that would not flood the dome, you know." "Those doors open by a magic word, and only Coo ee oh knows the word that must be uttered," said Lady Aurex. "Dear me!" exclaimed Dorothy. "That dreadful Queen's witchcraft upsets all my plans to escape. I guess I'll give it up, Ozma, and let you save us." Ozma smiled, but her smile was not so cheerful as usual. The Princess of Oz found herself confronted with a serious problem, and although she had no thought of despairing, she realized that the Skeezers and their island, as well as Dorothy and herself, were in grave trouble, and that unless she could find a means to save them, they would be lost to the land of Oz for all future time. "In such a dilemma," she said musingly, "nothing is gained by haste. Careful thought may aid us, and so may the course of events. The unexpected is always likely to happen, and cheerful patience is better than reckless action." "All right," returned Dorothy. "Take your time, Ozma. There's no hurry. How about some breakfast, Lady Aurex?" Their hostess led them back to the house, where she ordered her trembling servants to prepare and serve breakfast. All the Skeezers were frightened and anxious over the transformation of their queen into a swan. Coo ee oh was feared and hated, but they had depended on her magic to conquer the Flatheads, and she was the only one who could raise their island to the surface of the lake again. Before breakfast was over, several of the leading Skeezers came to Lady Aurex to ask her advice and to question Princess Ozma, of whom they knew nothing except that she claimed to be a fairy and the ruler of all the land, including the Lake of the Skeezers. "If what you told Queen Coo ee oh was the truth," they said to her, "you are our lawful mistress, and we may depend on you to get us out of our difficulties." "I will try to do that," Ozma graciously assured them. "But you must remember that the powers of fairies are granted to them to bring comfort and happiness to all who appeal to them. On the contrary, such magic as Coo ee oh knew and practiced is unlawful witchcraft, and her arts are such as no fairy would condescend to use. However, it is sometimes necessary to consider evil in order to accomplish good, and perhaps by studying Coo ee oh's tools and charms of witchcraft, I may be able to save us. Do you promise to accept me as your ruler and to obey my commands?" They promised willingly. "Then," continued Ozma, "I will go to Coo ee oh's palace and take possession of it. Perhaps what I find there will be of use to me. In the meantime, tell all the Skeezers to fear nothing, but to have patience. Let them return to their homes and perform their daily tasks as usual. Coo ee oh's loss may not prove a misfortune, but rather a blessing." This speech cheered the Skeezers amazingly. Really, they had no one now to depend upon but Ozma, and in spite of their dangerous position, their hearts were lightened by the transformation and absence of their cruel queen. They got out their brass band, and a grand procession escorted Ozma and Dorothy to the palace, where all of Coo ee oh's former servants were eager to wait upon them. Ozma invited Lady Aurex to stay at the palace also, for she knew all about the Skeezers and their island, and had also been a favorite of the former queen. So her advice and information were sure to prove valuable. Ozma was somewhat disappointed in what she found in the palace. One room of Queen Coo ee oh's private suite was entirely devoted to the practice of witchcraft, and here were countless queer instruments and jars of ointments, bottles of potions, labeled with queer names, and strange machines that Ozma could not guess the use of, and pickled toads and snails and lizards, and a shelf of books that were written in blood, but in a language which the ruler of Oz did not know. "I do not see," said Ozma to Dorothy, who accompanied her in her search, "how Coo ee oh knew the use of the magic tools she stole from the three adepts. Moreover, from all the reports, those adepts practiced only good witchcraft, such as would be helpful to their people, while Coo ee oh performed only evil. Perhaps she turned the good things to evil uses?" suggested Dorothy. "Yes, and with the knowledge she gained, Coo ee oh doubtless invented many evil things, quite unknown to the good adepts, who are now fishes," added Ozma. "It is unfortunate for us that the Queen kept her secrets so closely guarded, for no one but herself could use any of these strange things gathered in this room." "Couldn't we capture the Diamond Swan and make her tell the secrets?" asked Dorothy. "No, even if we were able to capture her, Coo ee oh has now forgotten all the magic she ever knew. But until we ourselves escape from this dome, we could not capture the Swan, and were we to escape, we would have no use for Coo ee oh's magic." "That's a fact," admitted Dorothy. "But say, Ozma, here's a good idea. Couldn't we capture the three fishes, the gold and silver and bronze ones? And couldn't you transform them back to their own shapes? And then couldn't the three adepts get us out of here?" "You are not very practical, Dorothy dear. It would be as hard for us to capture the three fishes from among all the other fishes in the lake as to capture the Swan." "But if we could, it would be more help to us," persisted the little girl. "That is true," answered Ozma, smiling at her friend's eagerness. "If you find a way to catch the fish, and I'll promise, when they are caught, to restore them to their proper forms." "I know you think you can't do it. I can't do it," replied Dorothy, "but I'm going to try." She left the palace and went to a place where she could look through the clear pane of glass of the glass dome into the surrounding water. Immediately, she became interested in the queer sights that met her view. The lake of the Skeezers was inhabited by fishes of so many kinds and many sizes. The water was transparent, so the girl could see for a long distance, and the fishes came so close to the glass of the dome that sometimes they actually touched it. On the white sands at the bottom of the lake were starfish, lobsters, crabs, and many shellfish of strange shapes and with shells of gorgeous hues. The water foliage was of brilliant colors, and to Dorothy it resembled a splendid garden. But the fishes were the most interesting of all. Some were big and lazy, floating slowly along or lying at rest with just their fins waving. Many with big round eyes looked full at the girl as she watched them, and Dorothy wondered if they could hear her through the glass if she spoke to them. In Oz, where all the animals and birds can talk, many fishes are able to talk too. But usually, they are more stupid than birds and animals, because they think slowly and haven't much to talk about. In the lake of the Skeezers, the fish of smaller size were more active than the big ones, and darted quickly in and out among the swaying weeds, as if they had important business and were in a hurry. It was among the smaller varieties that Dorothy hoped to spy the gold and silver and bronze fishes. She had an idea the three would keep together, being companions now as they were in their natural forms. But such a multitude of fishes constantly passed, the scene shifting every moment, that she was not sure she would notice them, even if they appeared in her view. Her eyes couldn't look in all directions, and the fishes she sought might be on the other side of the dome, or far away in the lake. Perhaps, because they were afraid of Coo ee oh, they've hid themselves somewhere, and don't know their enemy has been transformed, she reflected. She watched the fishes for a long time, until she became hungry and went back to the palace for lunch. But she was not discouraged. "Anything new, Ozma?" she asked. "No, dear. Did you discover the 3 fishes? Not yet, but there isn't anything better for me to do, Ozma, so I guess I'll go back and watch again. And that's the end of our reading for today. Come back on Friday and see if they can get out of the dome under the water, if they can find the 3 fishes, and what will happen with them. We will be skipping tomorrow, Thanksgiving, so it will be Friday when we do the next reading. So I hope you have a very happy Thanksgiving, and I look forward to sharing a few more chapters with you on Friday.